Hello, hello. Welcome to the Mystic Path. This will be your energy update for December. And then I do want to make a quick announcement. I will have family visiting me the months of January and February, the entirety. So there may not be a January and a February energy update. There will definitely be readings for the moons, for the full moon, new moon, all of that. But I do not know how it will be. Like, there will be a lot of people here, so there might be too much chaos in my house for me to get away and try to film in-depth videos. So worst comes to worst, I'll shut myself in my office and just do a quick live, kind of talking about the crystals and everything. But they may be much shorter than normal. But yeah, so that's just a quick announcement. They will definitely be the full energy updates like I do them will definitely be back in March, and they might be there as well for January and February. I'm just not sure because I don't know how the scheduling will go when I have a house full of people. So just keep that in mind. Okay, so let's just get right into it. Okay. We're going to pull some cards from Spell Casting Oracle. We're going to pull some goddess cards. Probably one, maybe two. I don't know why I said two. It must mean there are two goddesses this month. Whispers of Healing, and then Dark Mansion Tarot. Okay, so that's what we're using. I've already prepared the space. We talked about that, I don't know, one of my other videos a few months ago about how before I come on camera, I call in my team, my guides, ancestors, multidimensionals, angels, fairies, any entity that wants to participate in a positive, loving, productive manner, sending messages for growth and clarity. Any entity that has malicious or nefarious harm is not welcome here. We cleared the space. My guides keep us protected. Also, all of you guys, while you're watching, so that you can't pick up or get attached to anything while I'm reading. And yeah, so I just want to remind everybody about that, because right now is the time, the next 6 months until June of 2023 is going to be a time where we really need to make sure we're taking care of our protections, right? Especially if you're very energy sensitive, you're going to have, you're going to feel intense energy over the next 6 months, because we had a final eclipse in November, and then that energy will last about 6 months, and that was the last eclipse we're having until 2025. So between now and the next eclipse in 2025, all of the eclipses and all of the energy that's coming over 2022 is going to be like integrating, settling. We're going to be seeing lots of changes in society because of it. Okay, and that can cause stress and chaos and a confusion energy. Okay, so also, quick disclaimer, Watson, the Mystic Cat, is here in the room with us. He may come up and join us. He's pouting on the couch right now because he's mad at his mom. He was trying to climb something that is not meant to be climbed. I guess. Not meant to be climbed. And I'm worried about him hurting himself or breaking something, right? So he knows he's not supposed to climb on it. And he hasn't tried in a really long time, but the last week or so, he keeps trying. And as soon as I sat down and put the camera and started to hit record, he started trying to climb this thing. So I scolded him, and now he's on the couch. Looks like he may be dozing off into a little nap. But full disclaimer, he may come in to participate because he does that sometimes. Okay, so back to what I was saying. So the beginning of December, you may feel confusion, irritability, okay? That's the energy that's going to be around early December, like first week probably. Okay? This energy, because of the confusion and the irritability, it kind of like pokes our ego, and then our ego starts to want to focus on all of the outside things, all of the external things. Like, why am I feeling this way, right? What in my external world is making me feel confusion or irritation? Okay, so why am I feeling this way? But what I want to tell you is this is a distraction trap, okay? Humans do this a lot. I have done it. I probably still do it at times. So I feel like that's why I can say this, because I have done this as well. Every human has. We get fixated on all these outside things, and we use those as a distraction from healing ourselves, right? I've talked a lot on this channel about my divorce 11 years ago, and that's a perfect example, right? I've talked about it on here a little bit. My ex-husband had some OCD issues. He had been diagnosed with something called OCPD, and it's basically like OCD and perfectionism on 20 all the time, right? And it made it very hard to be in a relationship with him and live with him, because everything had to be perfect all the time, right? Because he couldn't be calm and enjoy his life if everything around him was not perfect. And I spent a long time, many years, using his OCPD as a way of distracting myself from my depression, right? For many years, I told myself this story that, like, we don't have that many problems and everything would be fine if he would just go to therapy and take the medicine that they've prescribed and work on his mental health, right? And that's a trap. I can speak from experience. That's a trap. That keeps you in this like blame loop, right? There's no solutions when you're blaming. There's no solutions when you're fixated on somebody else. So basically, I was fixated on somebody else's journey and somebody else's healing process so that I didn't have to deal with my own, right? And what ended up happening was my life just kept getting worse and worse and more chaotic and more crazy. Well, I hate to use the word crazy, but you know what I mean. More chaotic, more stressful, lots of conflict energy. And that's because the universe was just going to pile it onto me until I stopped worrying about his problems and started worrying about my own, right? And so that's what ended up happening when I stopped fixating on fixing him, right? Then I realized, and I could look around and see that, like, oh, I also have my issues. I have depression. I have anxiety. I have things that I'm ignoring, right? And so I've talked about it before. I got myself into therapy. This was over 11 years ago, because my divorce was 11 years ago, and it started pre that, right? Because my life was falling apart for many years pre-therapy. And then once I started doing therapy and working on myself, then I realized that, like, oh, this relationship isn't even something that's going to work. but I was like clinging on to it and focusing on, and I was projecting, right, that all of the problems in this relationship are because of his OCD and his resistance and refusal to heal and go to therapy. And while that is partially true, I also had issues, right? And so even if he had done everything right and gone right to therapy and started working hard on it and started healing and managing his mental health issues, then mine still would have been sitting there waiting, right? And that's ended up what happening. The more I started doing therapy, the more I started realizing, the more I got healthy, the more confident I got in myself, the more I realized, like, I shouldn't even be in this relationship. And, you know, everything always works out how it's supposed to work out, right? But I just want to bring that up. You know, these distraction loops and blame loops and judgment loops, these are just traps to keep us stuck from healing and working on our own selves, right? So, you know, I know we as humans tend to ask a lot, why, right? Why is this happening? Why? But why, even knowing the why, doesn't change the circumstance, and it does not make you feel any better, trust me, right? Like, I knew a lot of the unhappiness in my marriage was caused from having to live in this like perfect environment and never make a mistake, never anything being out of place. Okay? And that was hard for me. Like, that's going to be hard for anyone, right? Because life is just not perfect. That's just not how it works. Okay? And then the more I started working on myself and healing, the happier I got, the healthier I got, right? And then because my ex-husband was resisting so much, and probably still is, I have no idea, but that was just an easy thing for me to attach to use as a way to distract me from working on myself, right? But then when I started working on myself, I realized, like, oh, this relationship isn't even gonna last. It's not healthy for me. It's not right. So, and then I started making changes in my life. And you know, I'm not suggesting that when you start healing, you have to end your relationship. But that does happen a lot, because if both people in the relationship aren't working on healing and working on themselves, then what happens is, like, this is what ended up happening. I started going to therapy, and for 2 years, I went regularly, once a week. And then my ex-husband was coming with me occasionally so we could talk about like marriage stuff, right? But even the therapist said to both of us, you both have your own things to work on, so you need to be in here for your own individual sessions so that you know, you guys can work on yourselves and you can grow together. But my ex-husband was very resistant and didn't want to go and didn't think he had any problems and la la la. You know how it goes. Because we're all human and we all don't want to face ourselves most of the time. So what ended up happening was I stayed consistent and kept going to therapy and kept working on myself, and I started growing and moving forward. And he just stayed in the same place because he was refusing to do any of the work. So what ended up happening is I started outgrowing him. And then I realized the more I healed and got happy and healthy and managed my depression, the more I could see the divide between our relationship and between us. And I started realizing that, like, I'm not going to be able to be in a long-term relationship with somebody who refuses to work on themselves and work on their issues. So this happens a lot. It's happened to a couple of my friends as well. If both parties in the relationship aren't willing to work on things and heal things and manage things to be more successful and to have a happier life, then they start growing apart. And then you don't have anything in common anymore, right? Like my ex-husband still wanted to go out with our friends and go drinking and all these things. and be very surface level. And I was going the opposite direction. I wanted to heal and sober up and get deep in my relationships with people. And so anyone could clearly see that this marriage was not going to work or last if he kept refusing. And so what ended up happening was we obviously got a divorce. And then for a couple of years after our divorce, he kept coming back begging me, and I kept saying to him, no, you have, these are my boundaries. And for this relationship to work, you're going to have to go to therapy, work on your OCPD, take the medicine that they've prescribed, because when he took the medicine, it did help him, right? So, because I'm not suggesting everybody needs to take medicine. I took medicine for a short time in my depression, but then once I got my depression managed, they weaned me off because I didn't need it anymore, right? So, I don't think permanent medication is the answer. But medication, like kind of how I describe it, is when you're broken, which most humans are, you have like this deep hole inside of you that you're trying to fill with all these outside distractions, right? Look around. People in the world try to fill that hole inside them with money, with stuff, with people, with job, being a workaholic, whatever it is. And nothing will fill that hole up until you actually heal yourself and work on your issues. So, that's kind of how I described it, was when I first started taking medicine, it filled the hole up enough that I was out of despair enough that I could actually go to therapy and do the work, right? So before the medicine, I was just too much of a mess to even be able to focus on doing the work. But then the medicine kind of brought me to a stabler place so that then I could work on facing the hard issues, and I had the courage to do it, the strength to do it, right? Then as I started healing, and I'm talking, this is like a 15-year journey, people. This is not something that happened overnight, right? So you just have to be patient. You have to listen to your body, listen to your mind, listen to what it's all telling you need, right? And so anyway, I went off on a little tangent there, but let's get back to it. So beginning of the month, it's going to be a little confusion, a little irritable. We're going to our ego is going to push us to look outside of ourselves. What are the problems outside of us that are causing this? But again, this is a distraction trap. So the real healing happens when we go within, right? And we start facing, what may I be doing to contribute to this? We have to take responsibility for ourselves, for our behaviors, for our patterns. There's a while back, there was this meme circulating on social media, and it said something to the effect of, you're not responsible for the programming you get as a child, but as an adult, you are 100% responsible for fixing it, right? So that's part of the issue, is people are like, this is just who I am. This is just how I was raised, right? And that's just not, that is true. That is how you were raised. It's how you were programmed by society, by your peers, by your family, by school, by church, whatever it is. But as an adult, it's your responsibility for getting therapy and working on healing any childhood issues you have, any traumas you have, any programming that you don't agree with, right? This is a perfect example. They were talking about it this morning on the news. The older generations, there's a lot of racism still, because they were all raised in a time where there was segregation, and being racist and discriminatory was a normal part of society, right? So those older generations have a lot of that racism still in them, because They were raised and programmed that way, and then they didn't do anything to go heal and ask themselves the hard questions. Do I believe this? Do I think this race is less than me? You know, stuff like that. So you're responsible, right? Like, as an adult, I started realizing, oh, son, there are a lot of people in my family that have racist views, and I did not agree with their thought process, and I did not want to be like that. So then I had to work on healing those programs and those things that had been like told to me when I was a little kid, right? And that's everybody. Like, globally, we have these big issues in the world, and racism is one of them, right? So equality, discrimination, those are others. So these are all issues that are always going to be around. They're never going to go away, because Earth is a school. So we're here to learn and grow, right? So these issues are always going to be here in some form, because these are the things that teach us and help us grow. Okay? So December is going to be a month where a lot of really deep healing is going to happen around relationships. And everybody immediately assumes this means love relationships, because that's another thing humans do to distract themselves, right? I'm not going to deal with my own problems. I'm just going to get in a relationship with somebody else, and then I'm going to focus on all their problems, right? This is something humans do. I giggle because, you know, the older you get and the longer you're on this journey, the more clearly you can see that this is just human nature. And sometimes we're just not that bright as a species, right? So I'm not just talking about love relationships. Everything is not, it's like doing tarot and whatever. Everybody's always like, what about my love life? And it's not always about that, you guys. Everything in life is not about love and being in love and having a partner, right? There's lots of other things that go on in life. We have bosses, we have friendships, we have families, we have lovers, we have mentors, right? These are all relationships. And there's going to be a lot of really deep healing happening around relationships in general in December. So it might be with your boss, with a friend, with a sibling, with a family member, with a lover, with an ex, whatever, okay? Like, because there's a lot of times where people break up in, like, non-healthy ways, right? Because things are toxic and neither person knows how to be healthy with each other. And so, you know, there's a lot of, like, fuck, you know, excuse my language, but, like, fuck you, or I never want to see you again, or woo, right? And sometimes later on, when you heal and you look back and you realize, like, oh, that person is not a bad person. They just weren't the right person for me, and I might not have handled that breakup correctly, right? Doesn't mean you still want to be with this person. It just means that you may feel the need to go look back with someone in the past and say, let's heal whatever wounds are left between us. I'm sorry. I didn't handle things properly. You know, whatever it is. Take responsibility for your part in it. Take accountability, because we're all humans, and I guarantee you, we all have a part in everything. Unless you're like murdered or raped or beaten, those are true victims, right? When big horrific things like that happen to you against your will. But a lot of humans, and I've done it too, get in victim mode, and then we want to blame the other person for everything, right? I didn't do anything wrong. This person did things to me. And yes, sometimes that is the case. This is not what I'm talking about now, because in the majority of relationships, both people have responsibility, and both people have driven it up. If it's in the ditch, it's because both people drove it into the ditch, right? Not just one person. Usually it's both people. So we always have to take responsibility for our part in it. Even if you feel like you didn't have a huge part in it, there's something you could take accountability for, right? Maybe I didn't here's a perfect example. I realized after having lots of therapy that I was raised in a very reactive family, right? Like we were all kind of programmed. Nobody stops and takes a pause and takes a deep breath and thinks about what they're about to say or what they're about to do. It was like something happens, the other person reacts, then the other person reacts, and then the next thing you know, you got this big chaotic situation, right? And I didn't know until I went to therapy that I was doing that. And so now, in looking back, we'll use my ex-husband again. He's not a bad person because he has OCPD. He's not a bad person because he refuses to face it and heal and deal with himself. I have now more compassion for him, and I understand that all our issues weren't all because of him. Part of it was me and the way I reacted to things, right? Because I was reactive and I didn't know it, in 9 times out of 10, I ended up throwing fire on an already blazing flame, right? And then things would just go completely out of control. And it was easy for me to be like, this is all him, right? But after having therapy and reflecting and talking about it with my therapist, it made me start to realize that, like, oh, I played a huge part in this too. Like, it wasn't all the fact that he was just resistant to change and resistant to dealing with himself and his issues and his mental health. It was also the fact that I had depression. I was very reactive to things. I didn't really think about his side of things, right? I was only always thinking about how it's affecting me because this is another thing humans do. So this is what I'm talking about. Like, nobody's suggesting you go get back together with an ex or you, and I'm also not suggesting you go apologize. Like, if you are a true victim, you don't go apologizing to your victimizer, obviously. But, you know, if you're not and you're an equal party to whatever transpired, then you also have a responsibility to say to that person, look, I'm sorry the way I handle, and I've done that. My ex-husband and I actually spoke last year for the first time in a decade, because his father died and his mother had died previously when we were together. So now he has no parents, right? And I always loved his parents. And so I reached out to him and was like, I always loved your parents. I'm so sorry about your dad. I hope you're doing okay now that both of them are gone, right? And then he responded back with something very nice. And we both kind of, I wanted to say like called a truce, but we weren't really at war, as far as I was concerned. So it wasn't like a truce. It was more just like, look, I've grown a lot. I've had a lot of therapy. I now understand, you're not a bad person. I wish you the best. I hope you have a happy, wonderful life. And I hope that you're not still holding on to anything in regards to me, because I'm not, because I've had so much therapy. And I just wanted you to know, I wish you the best. I don't think you're a bad person, because there were times in our divorce that I said some things that, again, because I was reactive, these were things I probably should not have said. And if I had had the ability to pause and reflect, I may not have said them, right? Because they were things designed to cut deep and to hurt. Sorry, I'm just checking to make sure. Yeah, okay. So anyway, so that's what I'm talking about. This month there's going to be a lot of clarity. There's going to be a lot of gratitude energy, appreciation, and forgiveness and understanding energy, okay? So that's what I'm talking about here. If an ex pops back up in your life, that doesn't necessarily mean that you're supposed to be with that person. It might just be the universe is putting you guys back together so that you can have this like moment of healing and reconciliation and like, I wish you the best. I have no ill will or ill feelings for you, etc. Right? So let's just keep that in mind. And this applies to all relationships, not just romantic ones. Okay? Between the 3rd and the 7th of the month, we're going to have this oh, we're going to have these moments of like, I don't want to carry this burden anymore, right? Like going back to talking about my ex-husband. That was partially, I just didn't want to care. I was so angry at him for so long, for so many things. And one day in therapy, I just realized like, the anger's only hurting me, right? He was moving on. He didn't care that I was sitting over here harboring all this anger towards him. He didn't care. He was just getting on with his life. And so it was only affecting me. And then all of a sudden one day I just realized like, God, I'm actually hurting myself by carrying this around, and I just don't want to carry it anymore. It took too much work to be that angry. And so that's going to happen between the 3rd and the 7th. There's going to be a lot of people having these aha moments and then realizing like, oh, I just don't want to carry this burden anymore. And I don't have to, right? So there's also a full moon coming up on the 7th. And this will illuminate all your emotions like full moons do, right? So from the 7th on in December, it's going to be all about walking your talk. If you are not authentic, if you are somebody who says one thing and then does another, you're going to have a rough month, because this energy is about putting us into calibration so that we are in alignment. And this planet, this school, the energy is changing. It's not going to be like it used to be on this planet. The energy is changing. And if you're not an authentic person who's living authentically, who's living and speaking your truth, who's not being shady and wearing a mask, like, you're going to be okay. But if you're not living in alignment, if you're not facing yourself and your issues, if you're wearing a mask and you say one thing and then when nobody's looking, you act a different way, opposite of what you've said, the energy will turn your life into chaos and upside downness, because we can't have that anymore. We can't have a bunch of humans on the planet that are unconscious and that are not in alignment. Okay? So after this full moon, this confusion and disorientation in energy is going to ramp up. It's going to intensify. So the rest of the month, this disorientation, discombobulated feeling is going to be happening. It's going to feel like we're like suspended in a pause, and we're not really moving forward. We're not really moving backwards. We're just kind of like suspended in this like limbo, right? That's kind of what it's going to feel like. And that's why it's important during this month, we need to lead with emotions. Okay? We need to ask ourselves the hard, like, if somebody triggers us or makes us mad or whatever it is, we need to take a pause and ask ourselves, what may this person be going through? Okay? Can I have compassion? Can I show compassion and understanding to this person? Because it's not all about us, right? Like, I may be irritated with somebody because I'm like, they're not performing. Like, let's just use a work example. They're not performing at the level I think they need to perform at, or at the level I perform at. So I'm going to be mad at them and like bury them in work and then try to force them to conform into a more productive manner, right? None of that's going to work. Okay? So that's why we need to lead with emotion, because let's say in that same situation, if you lead with emotion, instead of like burying them in work, scolding them, telling them they're not being productive enough, you're going to want to stop, take a pause, drop into your heart space, and then ask yourself, what may this person be going through? Is there something I'm not understanding about them and their life and their circumstances that is making them not produce as much as I think they are capable of, right? And so, and then if I went to that person and I was like, listen, let's have a talk. What's going on? Is everything okay? because I feel like you're not performing where you could be or where you normally are, right? That's going to be a whole different outcome than if I'm like, come sit in my office and we're going to have a discussion. You're not performing. You're not doing well. These are all the mistakes you've made. These are that's not going to work out well for anybody. That person's going to leave feeling horrible and being deeply in fear for their job. I'm not going to feel great because I just had to have like a scolding moment with an employee of mine who I value, right? So that's what I'm talking about. We got to drop into the heart space, lead with our emotion before we're reacting to things this month. Okay? For the next 6 months, there is going to be a lot of chaos in the collective. In the outside world, this is why earlier I was saying it's not a good idea to focus on the outside world and think it's something external that's making me feel this way. Because the outside world for the next 6 months is going to be very tense. It's going to be very push-pull. The global economy is going to be very chaotic, is what I wrote down. Now, there's going to be a lot of people in the collective having money struggles. There's going to be a lot more inflation coming. There's going to be, like, now is not really the time to be making big purchases, right? Now is the time to conserve, to make smart choices, to be conscious when we're making choices in regards to our money. Like, do I really need to buy that? Whatever, right? Because usually you don't. This is also a good time in the next 6 months to start looking at what are my actual needs and what are my wants. Because the wants sometimes have to be put on the back burner. They have to be, because if money is getting tight and things are getting tense because of circumstances you don't control, which the economy, none of us control that, right? So it's not the right time to be overspending, to be making big investments in things. For the next 6 months, it's going to be the time to be very conscious about what you're doing, where you're putting your money. And as long as you're conscious and you're just not like unconsciously spending and living your life, you're going to be okay. But if you're somebody who's just unconsciously spending, if you have a lot of credit card debt because you live out of your means, you're going to feel it this month. Because from this point forward, for the next 6 months, there's going to be like an equaling out. If you're, like we all see in society, there's a lot of people who just live way outside their means, right? If you're doing that and you're not, like if you don't have the money to live at the level of your spending, the next 6 months, that's all going to be balanced out. That's not going to be a thing anymore. You're not going to be able to just overspend and act like you're rich when you're not, because everything in the energy is balancing out. So over the next 6 months, you're going to see a lot of rebalancing. Okay, the first thing that comes to my mind is like, and I don't really watch them too often. I have seen their show occasionally. I watch them because I find them hilarious, like when it's on or whatever. But the Chrisleys, they just this year were convicted of like bank fraud because they are living way outside of their means and taking loans and they can't afford them, right? And so then they ended up filing for bankruptcy because they had taken out all these loans that they could not pay back. And then they filed for bankruptcy, and then they started with a clean slate and did it again. And so now they're both, the husband and wife, are going to go to jail for a combined 19 years for bank fraud. And they're being forced. They have 2 mansions that equal, I don't know, I think $7 million or something, like the value of them together. And the court is forcing them to sell those mansions and give that money to the banks they defrauded. And then they're both going to jail. The wife's going for 7 years. The husband's going for 12 years. So that's like an example of what I'm talking about. If you are living way outside of your means, there's going to be a rebalancing. If you are doing shady things to have money, there's going to be a rebalancing, right? Like if you're embezzling from your job, and I know that sounds extreme, but I actually grew up with somebody who like 5 years ago got arrested and went to jail because her job found out over a 5-year period she had embezzled $60,000 and was like buying her kids cars and moving into a new house that she couldn't afford, right? And so people started wondering, like, this is weird. We know what her salary is. How can she afford all of this? So then they started looking into it, and then they found she was embezzling from their business. And so it was like a whole thing. I went to high school with this person. It shocked everyone, right? And she came from like a really good family who like she didn't need to do that, right? It's just that she wanted to live outside of her means. She wanted things that were not necessities that she could not afford. And that's fine. We can all want things, but then you're going to have to work harder. You're going to have to get a second job. You're going to have to start a new business, whatever it is. If you don't have the legitimate money to pay for those things you want, then you should not get them. And from this point forward, if you go forward with it, the universe will rebalance you in a Chrisley catastrophe is what I just heard in my mind. I don't mean to chuckle at somebody else's misfortune. That phrase is a little bit comical. Okay, catastrophe. Chrisley catastrophe. So basically, from now until June, like, live within your means. Be conscious. Think about, like, do I really need to give this money to a company, to a big corporation who is ruining the environment or who is exploiting children or whatever it is? Like, we need to start being more conscious about our choices, about how we spend our money, because that is not the most important thing. And for a long time on this planet, they've been trying to program us all to believe that that is the most important thing. And it's not. And so now we're going to be in this rebalancing, right? Now, it's going to be tough. The next 6 months, it's going to be tough. We're going to feel a pinch in the money sector part of things. Globally, okay? This is globally and individually if you're not living consciously like we just talked about, right? But the good news is, right? Because we've been talking about this a lot since 2020 on this channel. Like the universe, basically, the systems we have are no longer working for the humans that are here. So these systems need to break down so that something new can come up in their place, right? So, because again, nobody's going to want to change or do anything different as long as these systems, but we have these systems, they're still working, right? So let's not do anything. So these systems have to fall, they have to break. And so the next 6 months is just a continuing breakage of the systems we've come to rely on. But the good news is, out of that, like, think about it, the next 6 months, money's going to be tight. The economy's not going to be great. So people are going to have to be creative and innovative about what they're doing with their resources, what they're doing with the resources they have, the money they have. Are we wasteful? Can we recycle this, right? Things like that. Like, I just redid my bathroom, my guest bathroom, because it was really in really bad shape. And I was really proud of myself the whole time I was doing it because I did not have to buy that many supplies. I tried to use stuff I already had in my garage. And then my brother owns a construction, like, remodeling company in Illinois. My uncle also does that same type of work in a different state. So when they finish projects, they will have like supplies and stuff left over that usually just get thrown away. Well, my mom caught my uncle trying to throw away all these like little glass mosaic tiles that would be like tiles in somebody's bathroom or kitchen, right? Like a tile floor. And she was like, what are you going to do with those? And he's like, I'm going to throw them away. And she's like, why? There's like 3 sheets there. And he's like, right, but that's not going to do a whole room. That's not going to, you're going to have to buy more tile, right? And so she was like, well, I'm going to take them to Amy because she likes to do projects and stuff. She'll find something to do with them. And she was right, I did. They sat in my garage for like a year while I was trying to figure out what to do with them. But then when I decided to remodel my bathroom, I was like, oh, I can use these, cut them all apart and make like a border around my mirror to make it look nice. And it turned out beautifully. And everybody's like, my God, it looks like a professional did that. And I'm like, nope, just me. And the resources I already had and a bottle of super glue. Okay, so that's what I'm talking about. The next 6 months, because of the pinch, because of the not great economy, there's going to be some new initiatives in society. We're going to see some new creative, innovative initiatives popping up that are going to come together during these 6 months. So these 6 months are going to be difficult, but the good news is in June, things are really going to start to get good in the collective because we're going to start to see new innovative initiatives rising up that have been born out of all of this stress and strife, right? And these things will start coming to the surface and people will start realizing like, oh, this is a good way to do it. And this is a way that is more in alignment with my beliefs or how we are now in society, right? We have to think a lot of these systems that we have were created hundreds and hundreds of years ago, some of them even thousands of years ago, like the banking system, right? And so humans, think about how humans were in their consciousness journey compared to now. They were not conscious at all, right? It was all just about surviving. It was not about thriving. It was about surviving. Well, those systems are not going to be able to support us in a society where we're now moving out of the survival instinct and more into the thriving instinct. So new things in the next 6 months out of all of this tension and push-pull economy, new, more aligned systems and initiatives are going to come out of it. And that's going to be good for us because then we're going to start to be moving into having systems that are more in alignment with who we are as humans today. Okay? So we just need to keep that in mind. During the tough times, during the time that it's hard and stressful and we're like tight and pinching our pennies, right? Amazing, wonderful growth is going to occur. So we just have to remind ourselves of that. When it's getting hard, just remind ourselves this is all happening for the highest, greatest good so that globally we as humans can rise up and start living and creating systems that are more in alignment with how we are today, not how we were thousands of years ago. Okay? Now, in this month, there will also be some global things happening that will kind of make us all think, my God, our leaders are totally failing us. Okay? And this is globally. And we have to remember that this is just further breaking the system, right? There's going to be a time this month where we're going to kind of look around at society and think, my God, we have a bunch of toddlers running the world. These people are immature. They're not great leaders. They're not making great choices, right? But it's going to be hard to watch and experience, but it's going to be for the greatest and highest good of humanity in the long run, right? Continually breaking the systems so new, more innovative, creative initiatives can take their place. We just have to remember that, okay? So So one thing I always say on this channel is pay attention to the signs. The universe is always giving you signs for you and your individual journey, because that's how energy works, right? It's just like an energy game that responds. So, just like a video game, how you push the jump button and then the thing responds by jumping, right? Energy is very similar. The way, like if you react to something with anger, then then the rest of the energy is going to respond to that reaction, right? So we just have to keep in mind this month, pay attention to the signs, stay in alignment, okay? That'll help us a lot more than resisting or being unconscious. Okay. The tension and confusion and chaotic energy is going to start to dissipate between the 18th and the 21st. Okay? This towards the end of the month, which is good because then we have Christmas and the holidays, right? So it's good. Nobody wants to be in this like tense, stressful energy during the week of Christmas. So that week, the energy is kind of going to like loosen up a little bit between the 18th and 22nd, I think. Is what I wrote down. 21st, 18th and 21st. Then after that, the energy is going to be less confusing, less chaotic. It's going to be more creative energy is going to start bubbling up. We're going to start feeling like a zest for life. And this is at the same time that the winter solstice is happening, right? So the seasons are also changing. We're going to feel the urge to like, get out and experience our community. Okay? We may have the urge to travel. We just want to keep in mind this month to be patient and to be kind with both others and ourselves. And I wrote this down because it's very important. The guides wanted to remind us that pausing is moving forward. Pause is momentum, period. They've said that to me before. We've talked about it before in other videos, but it came up again, okay? Having patience, having kindness, taking a step back to take a deep breath before you strategize whatever's happening in your life is a healthy thing to do, and that does move you forward, right? So pausing is still active. A lot of people believe that it's not, but it is. We need the rest. We need the pause, right? I mean, they can't say it any better than they did months ago in that video. Pause is momentum. Period. Dot. Okay? Now, in December, the chakra that will be challenged the most is the solar plexus. Now, think about this. Right? The solar plexus is all about like our confidence, our I am, who we are, how we show up in the world, speaking our truth, having the strength to speak our truth, right? So it makes sense that this would be challenged this month because globally things are going to be falling apart a little bit. And there's going to be a lot of truths coming in that not everybody's going to be okay with handling. Right? Not everybody wants the system to break and move us forward into evolving into something better. Because there's still a lot of fear. There's still a lot of people stuck in fear, and people would rather stay. It's like that saying, better be with the devil you know than the devil you don't, right? Which, like, people say that a lot in relationships or at a job, right? Like, I hate my job, but at least I know what this job is. So I'd rather stay here and be miserable than try something different because I don't know what the different thing is, right? I don't know what the new job will bring me. So there are still a lot of people on this planet that are stuck in that fear mentality, that lack, living in lack, right? And so that is, it's going to be hard for those people to watch the system continue to break, right? And not everybody wants to hear the truths that are going to be coming. So we just need to keep that in mind. We're going to be very challenged in our solar plexus because there's going to be a lot of stuff happening in the collective that makes us question truth. Is this true? Is this really happening? What is going on? Are we in the twilight zone? Right? It'll be like that. And we've already been talking about a lot of confusion energy, so this just goes right along with it, right? But one of the things, again, that will help this month is be yourself. Be authentic. Live your truth. That's the best way to combat this energy. All right? Now, our crown chakra will be supporting us this month, which makes a lot of sense with all this truth coming in, right? In our mind, we're going to need to start trying to have some clarity and sort that stuff out. So our crown chakra is going to be supported by the universe. And also our heart chakra will be needed the most this month, okay? And that goes back to what I was saying earlier. We're going to have to drop into our heart space and try to approach life this month with more patience, more compassion, more understanding, more kindness, more forgiveness. Those are the things we need to lean into this month if we want to have a smooth experience. Okay? Now, crystals that will help us. Okay, solar plexus being challenged. Things that will help. Citrine. Okay, we got some citrine here. This is raw. I think I have a polished one around. Yep. Okay, so this is a raw citrine, and this is a polished one. Okay, so citrine's going to be very helpful this month. Also, tiger's eye. Okay, I did not even realize this, but my grandmother had left me a bunch of jewelry when she passed in 2020, and I didn't even realize one of the things she left me was a tiger's eye ring. It's beautiful, but if I push it down any further, I don't think I'll be able to get it off. So it's not something I'm going to be able to wear, but maybe I'll put it on a necklace and wear it around my neck, put it in my pocket. Anyway, tiger's eye, always really good to carry with you. Citrine, also good. And then the other one for our solar plexus support is amber. This is a ring I was given when I was like 18 years old. That's why now I'm wearing it on my pinky, because it does not fit anywhere else, you see. And believe it or not, this was a high school graduation present from a some family members, and it fit me back then. Now, on both hands, it only goes on my pinky. So I'm going to wear it a lot this month because amber will also be very helpful, right? So we have tiger's eye, amber, citrine. These are going to be helpful in supporting your solar plexus, okay? To balance everything out, but you're not going to want to grid your bed with those, just FYI. We'll talk about grid bedding in a moment. But these are a little bit too intense of energies for bed gridding, okay? So these are more to wear, to carry with you, to keep around your environment, okay? Now, something that will be good for gridding your bed. We'll talk about that later. We'll talk about the bed later. But another crystal that's going to be really good this month, it's called Aura Light 23. Okay? It is a variation of amethyst. Okay? You can kind of see there's some amethyst in there, right? So this is amethyst. This is Aura Light 23. Now, we're going to talk about this. Amethyst is a very good substitution this month if you don't have any Aura Light 23. And let me tell you, Aura Light 23 is not cheap. And this is something that'll be good for gridding your bed this month. So what I did was I went online and I searched for this first to find like little pieces that I could use to grid my bed, right? It was very expensive. I found a palm stone that was like this big. It was like $800, which is crazy, right? So I was like, yeah, that's not a crystal I can afford anytime soon. So what I did do, though, is I looked for beads or shards, and I did find a strand of beads for $30. And so I purchased it. They're not here yet. When they come, I'm going to take the beads. I'm going to use those to grid my bed. And then I'm probably going to make a bracelet for the rest and wear them because it's a good crystal for this month. But if you cannot get this crystal because it is rare, it's only found in Canada, it is basically, it's called Aura Light 23. The reason it's called that is because there are 23 minerals in this one crystal. Okay? Now, if you just get a bead or a little shard of it and you looked at it with a microscope and you only found 5 minerals, it does not matter. It still has the vibration of all 23 minerals. Okay? So it does not matter the size, the vibration is the same. And this is an expensive crystal and it's only found in Canada, so it might not be easy to get. So like I said, I decided I'm gonna get a strand of beads. They're very small beads, probably like these little ones, right? Because the bigger beads were very expensive. So if you can't get your hands on this or you can't get your hands on any beads or whatever, then just substitute amethyst because this is considered an amethyst variation. You can see it's very amethysty. Okay. So, and this purple crown chakra. Okay. Now, all right, we'll get back to crystals here in a bit, but I want to talk about, well, we only have one left, so let's talk about it. Actually, green aventurine is the other crystal for this month. This will be good for our heart chakra, which is needed the most, right? Green aventurine is very good for increasing abundance, bringing romance, bringing deeper insight into how your emotions are supporting you or not supporting you in your health, right? So let's just talk about the bed while we're doing it here. I took a lot of notes this month. Okay, so yeah, for the bed, hold on, let me just grab some other crystals here because I forgot that I was gonna need. Aha. Okay, here we go. Also, just take a quick little drink here. Okay, so, yes, to grid the bread, always our standards. Like, and just to talk about this, because crystals can get very expensive. I have a lot of crystals only because I've been on this journey for a very long time, and I was also a weird little kid that like collected crystals and rocks and like was fascinated by this stuff. Okay, so I have a lot of crystals just because over the years I have collected them, right? So always, if you don't want to change your bed grid every month, you don't have to. 2 really good standards, black tourmaline. You could always just grid your bed with only black tourmaline. If you are open to messages from your guides, being deep in your spiritual journey, then you add selenite, because selenite basically lets the universe know, I'm open for business. I want to participate. If you're having a day that's really intense, I had this day the other day because I'm a double fire sign, and then we had double fire in the sun and the moon. And man, I was having a day where I was getting so many messages. It wasn't overwhelming. It was just like so much coming in that I needed a break, right? So that night I took the selenite from my bed grid so that the messages would kind of calm down and I could just like be in my body. So, but on a regular basis, I always have selenite and black tourmaline in my bed grid. These are like just good standards. If you put no other crystal, if you never change crystals monthly, that's okay too. These are just good standards to have. Always just this one Unless you want to go deep in your spiritual journey and your healing process, then add selenite, okay? So these are the base. This month too, these are both going to be good. You're going to add to it green aventurine and Auralite 23. Or if you do not have that, you will add amethyst as a substitute. Okay, amethyst, really good sleeping crystal. Got some really good energy for a yummy sleep. Green aventurine as well. So these are the bed grid for December. Selenite, black tourmaline, Auralite or amethyst, and green aventurine. Okay? So hopefully that helps. We'll put these here. We'll put these on the side. Oh, and here comes Sophia, so she may come join us. Okay, so now that we've talked about the crystals, we'll get back to my notes here. This month, we're going to need to be about, this is what I wrote. This month, we will need to fall back and rise above. Okay? Take a pause. Zoom out and look at things from a higher perspective. That's what's really going to help us this month. We talked about this earlier. Take a pause. Pause is momentum, right? Now, we also need to be aware that in this month, because in the collective, there's going to be a lot going on, and it's going to be disruptive, it's going to be chaotic, it's going to cause people a lot of stress and fear, okay? So there may be moments in this month of grieving the old way, the old world, the old way, the old self. And that's okay. Take those moments as they come, grieve them, and then remind yourself we're moving into a more aligned world where everybody's going to be happier, everybody's going to have more opportunity, right? Things are going to be more harmonious. So, go ahead and grieve and then remind yourself. Sorry, I was just wondering if, yep, it went out. Oh, let's just relight it. There we go. Okay. All right. Now, in January, I know this is the December update, but I do just want to mention this. In January, there's going to be lots of grounding energy coming in. Also, lots of creativity coming in. So I wrote down, in January, launch something new. Be creative. Be adventurous. Lots of grounding energy for creating and launching something new in January. Okay? And keep in mind, in this next year, there's going to be lots of new systems, lots of new innovation, lots of new creative initiatives coming to the surface. Okay? In June, that's really going to ramp up. So from June until December of 2023, I mean, of course, there are always going to be issues and wobbles, but it's going to be less chaotic, less confusing. We're going to have a little bit more of a harmonious world. You're going to see where humans are starting to move into more harmonious ways of being and living. Okay, so just remember, these 6 months are going to be really rough, but this is really just about relearning how to live and how to be more in alignment. How can we have better systems that work for more people, right? I'm from America, so I can just speak to America, but I can tell you that in America, most of our systems only really work for white, wealthy people. And anyone else, the systems do not work in your favor. They actually work against you, okay? So in the next 6 months, when we're feeling stressed out, when we're really feeling the pinch and the chaos of what's happening in the world, we need to remind ourselves The breaking down of systems has to happen to make room for the new, harmonious, more aligned systems and ways of being, right? These next 6 months will be hard. However, these next 6 months are what is pushing humanity to some really, really big steps forward in our evolution. And that makes me happy. Honestly, I feel like I've been waiting for humans to evolve since I was 20 years old. And I'm now 47. So, I feel like I've been frustrated for many, many years and waiting a long time for humans to kind of like get their act together. And it's finally going to start happening, right? Yay, that's exciting. All right, let's just talk. Okay, that's it. So aromatherapy, again, the aromatherapy comes courtesy of Jamie Butler, JamieButlerMedium.com, I think is her website. Anyway, you can look her up. She's called the Everyday Medium. Her name's Jamie Butler. She always monthly provides like an aromatherapy. She also makes sprays with aromatherapy at her website, Not a Cult, right? Brilliant website, notacult.com. Here's one of her sprays. I'll give her a little shout out. But if you want to mix your own aromatherapy for the month of December, she recommends lavender, bergamot, jasmine, and clary sage. Okay, so you would do 4 drops of lavender, 2 drops of bergamot, 1 drop of jasmine, 1 drop of clary sage. Okay, so that's the aromatherapy. Now, I'm done with my notes. Let's see where we are on time. And then we'll pull a couple of cards. Oh, wow. An hour and 11 minutes. I've been talking a lot today, and I just jiggled the camera. My apologies. Okay, so let's just pull a couple cards, and then we will wrap it up, because this has been a long one. That was not my intent, and it doesn't even feel like it's been that long, but it has been. Okay? So, let us pull from the Goddess deck. What goddesses will be supporting, what goddess or goddesses will be supporting the collective. Okay, top card only this month. Any other? Yep. Man, okay. This one has tried to come out like it was stuck in my hand a couple of times, and I just kept thinking, it's not meant to come out. It would come out if it did, and here it is. Okay, so we have Rhea, the goddess of flow, and green Tara, salvation. Both beautiful cards. Both, I'm noticing lots of greens here for our green adventuring. And even she has green in the name, which is interesting, right? So let's just see what the book says on these two beautiful goddesses. All right. Let's see. Rhea first, 43. Oh. All right. So the message here, the Greek goddess Rhea, whose very name means flow and ease, comes to let you know that you're entering such a time. See, so this makes sense because there's going to be a lot of chaotic and confusing and irritable energy in December. And so this goddess is coming in with flow, right? She's trying to add flow into the mix so that it's not so rough for us, right? So this says, while the flow state is not permanent for most people, It's a beautiful feeling that allows you to lose yourself in the rhythm. It's as if you're traveling down a magic stream where ideas and insights pour through you from a vast source of information that is gifted to you. The way to ensure you remain in this beautiful energy, as long as you can, is to observe your life with relaxed attention, listening to the guidance presented to you as you move forward without restraint or fixed ideas. What did I say earlier? Pause and rise above. Okay? I feel like she's here supporting that. Okay? It says, sometimes you may find yourself in a stagnant state where nothing seems to be moving. The flow between you and the universe is blocked. This can happen when you fear that your desire won't be met, and also when things are moving too quickly and seemingly in a different direction from what you expected. The goddess Rhea reminds you that when you trust the flow state, you'll find an opportunity to flow around a bend you've not discovered yet, right? And that's what we're talking about. The new ideas, the new innovations, the new creative initiatives, right? Because those are being born out of necessity. Our old systems aren't working, so new systems will be born out of necessity. And she's here supporting new systems and energy that will be more in flow, more in alignment, more in harmony. I don't know if you can hear. You can probably hear the sand cranes are out. They're out there squawking. Okay. And now Green Terra, card 17, Salvation. Okay. Green Terra, a Tibetan goddess also known as she who saves, says, you will never be alone in life's journey. This compassionate savior goddess of intimate friendship will ensure that the right people will show up for you at the right time. Green Terra reminds you that your needs will always be met. You don't need to know the how or the why. You just need to trust, and the goddess Green Terra will use her magic on your behalf. She is here to remind you that salvation is contingent on your willingness to release your ego conflicts, and surrender your wants and unmet desires to the divine. Okay? So this makes sense for everything we've already just talked about, right? Let's pull a quick Whisper of Healing card. Get the book out in case we need it. Let's just get where is the focus in December for healing? Where is the main focus of what we should be trying to work on and heal for the month of December? One card, please. Or two. Okay. Isn't it funny that it's like whenever I try to control it and be like, one card, it is like, no, thank you. And what's even funnier is this card is unexpected. And this one is receive healing. Okay, and these both have rainbows. Very similar to these, right? Rainbows are about happiness, moving forward. Okay, receiving healing is card number 1. This basically says, the first and most important step for healing is being able to recognize you need it. When you are asked about your health, you discount what is going on by stating you are fine. You are being asked to acknowledge your deep need for healing. Whether your wounds are physical, mental, emotional, or spiritual, you may need the support of someone who can help you face your concerns. Take a moment to reflect on what's going on for you. This card asks you to accept some extra support. It is letting you know that you don't need to do this alone. Professional advice will help get you the best information. Trust that you will find the support that best suits your needs. Okay? So I didn't really understand why I was talking so much about my ex-husband and that healing journey, because it's been so long ago now that I've let it go and moved on from it because I've healed everything. But now I understand why, because this card is basically saying therapy. We all need therapy, right? My guides told me several months ago, every human being needs therapy, especially the ones who think they don't. Right? Because that's your ego just telling you, you're fine, you don't need therapy, right? But we all need therapy. We all need somebody who's objective, who we can share with, and maybe they can guide us in a different direction than we would normally think, right? Which brings me to this unexpected card, card 48. Let's see. So much of the world mistakenly believes that there is a lack of resources. Holding a scarcity belief can be quite painful and cause unnecessary fear and desperation. An attitude of abundance recognizes there are always new chances, unexpected windfalls, and opportunities on the way. There is never just one opportunity, a lone choice, or a single chance. The number of opportunities matches the number of stars in the sky. And that's a lot, right? I'm going to leave it there because I feel like that's a good stopping point. This has gone on longer than I planned, but as we know, right? What did they say? Humans make plans and God laughs. So, as always, it's as long as it needed to be. I'm wishing you all a wonderful December. Have a wonderful rest of your day, evening, week, weekend, night, whatever it is for you. Wishing you lots of love and light. Let's focus on healing this month. Let's focus on getting into flow and being open to letting new, innovative, creative initiatives rise to the top, right? Everything's breaking down to make room for these new things to flow to the top, right? So, all right, have a great one, everyone. Thank you so much for watching. Please like, share, and subscribe.